Hey, I want to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Dan Itzkowski on the line, and he's an inventor of Skunk Lock and also co-founder over at Side Pocket Financial. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Good to be here.
All right, Dan. So I know that you're known for quite a few things, whether it's Skunk Lock, whether it's Side Pocket Financial. I mean, you're doing quite a bit. I mean, in investing, I mean, there's a lot around that. But I guess just to kind of get us started here, like when I think of you as an entrepreneur. I don't know if you like or don't like the word serial entrepreneur, but you got a lot going on. How did all this start for you?
I think it started a long time ago when I was a little kid. You know, I always liked building things, and then I loved creating things that people really wanted to use. And I think I started out actually selling candy when I was like 7 years old to friends of mine at school. And
oh, that's great. You were one of the candy selling kids. I loved you guys. I was the baseball card guy. We didn't really switch over on turf. I did the baseball cards or maybe sometimes the comics, and then some of my other friends were the candy people. So I love it. We would have been friends growing up. I know it. Go ahead.
I would have been your candy dealer, right?
Exactly.
I love that.
So take me further, all right? So obviously when you were young, you started, and that's where you got, just like myself, I mean, that's where I kind of got hooked on the idea of entrepreneur and just providing value. Like how'd that grow from, where you're at there to now?
Yeah, I think I just got progressively better at it and more purposeful and structured over the years. You never go from 0 to 100 instantaneously. You always take steps along the way. And I think I graduated from candy to bootleg CDs to, selling services, making websites for people, and eventually selling things on eBay. And
when did you start with the website thing? Were you early on? And eBay, were you early on?
Yeah, I was really early. That was when I was probably only 10 or 11 years old.
Oh, come on. So you did. I wish I was that smart. I think I was trying to do some mail order envelope or something I don't remember, but I didn't have the chops on that one. Oh man. So you're early on there then.
Yeah, very early. And fortunately at the time, it was still a very valuable skill. Today, AI can code most things on a website these days. So it doesn't pay as well anymore, unfortunately, but that's kind of the nature of the game, right? You have to find opportunities in the market and see where you can add value.
So now you're, obviously those are the young years. Let's speed it up to where you're making some larger impact here, like with what you're doing today. Like how'd that happen?
Yeah, I'm a son of immigrants from Poland. My parents came here in the 80s, and classic immigrant story. You don't have too many career options. It's normally doctor, lawyer, or some sort of financier. I went into the hedge fund world. I was good at making money and investing and things of that sort. So I started my career in the investing world, but I realized rather quickly that it wasn't really meaningful to me. It didn't make me feel good that I'm using my skills, just moving money around and making the 0.1% of the population that's already wealthy just a little bit wealthier. So I wanted to start building things, and that's what I did. And I'd say my first breakout company was a personal company a company that was very personal to me because I had a lot of bikes stolen growing up in San Francisco. And the reason for that was that every single bike lock company on the planet was lying to people and actively hiding the fact that these angle grinders and these powerful power tools exist that can cut any in a matter of seconds. So my first kind of breakout company was a mission-driven company. I didn't really care if I made any money on it. I just wanted to make it go viral and make sure to expose all the other companies in the industry. So I co-invented the first bike lock that explodes with noxious chemicals if a thief cuts it.
Wow, what an idea there. Did you get, when that first happened, or you came up with that idea, did you get any, backlash from that? It's just such a novel idea. How did you think of that?
Yeah, I wish I had a book available to me when I was starting my entrepreneurial journey for Thiel's 0 to 1. But he mentions that the biggest and greatest opportunities lie in important truths that very few people agree with you on. And that was absolutely the case with an exploding bike lock. The things that I heard were, no, that's going to be illegal. You can't do that. Or no, lock companies wouldn't be lying to us. They're good people. They're making these security devices. So, and then millions of bikes are stolen every single year. There's no way you can stop that. It's way too big of a problem. These are things here. Well, nearly a decade later and thousands of bikes saved later, not a single lawsuit or legal issue. Big bike companies were actively hiding the existence of angle grinders, but now the industry for deterrent locks that Skunk Lock spearheaded is over $1 billion. So everyone acknowledges that locks can be cut with these power tools very easily. And Skunk Lock receives 100 plus emails, thank you emails every single month from customers saying that it stopped a theft attempt. So clearly there's something there.
Do you remember the ideation process that you went through to come up with the product? Or was it just like you're sitting there and it came to you or the other co-inventor? Like, how did that, was it like a stroke of genius? I'm always curious on an inventor's mind, like when these things happen, like, or was it a build up where you had a whiteboard? Like, how did you come up with the concept?
I think it's how I've wired my brain over the years was always everything. And to a degree, it's principal component analysis, trying to look at the foundational assumptions that you're making around everything. The foundational assumptions were that you can make a stronger, harder, thicker lock and it would be more effective. Or you can use German steel, whatever that means. Like some of them were claiming, and you can resist bike theft, where the truth is the difference between a $300 lock at the time and a $20 lock was about 6 seconds of cutting time.
Wow.
Nothing for a thief, right? So in terms of ideation, I think I just accidentally trained my mind to have that degree of foundational thinking and skepticism and looking for these truths where I can potentially identify and then commercialize it into a product. And that's what we did over the last decade or so, close to a decade now.
Man, that's an amazing story. And so when you're building companies and looking for, I mean, you're attacking different niches, you're attacking different angles. And when I saw this originally, I'm like, okay, so we have a bike lock on one side and then we have, a side pocket on the other side. And I'm like, that's a big bandwidth for an entrepreneur. So maybe give us, like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So my background is actually in quantitative finance. That's an industry I always had a passion for and always wanted to return to, but sometimes opportunity comes knocking at your door. And, within 10 days or so, Skunk Lock went viral. Within 10 days, I became guy. I went from somebody with a pretty substantial amount of technical skills, and some very valuable skills, and I got deduced to the guy that made the exploding bike lock. So it's
how'd
amazing.
you deal with that? I can't let you get past that, Dan. Like, how'd you deal with that? That's a thing.
Yeah, I embraced it, I accepted it, and at the end of the day, I realized there's two kinds of people: the kind of people that are building things for their own satisfaction and own benefit. Those people are really particular in terms of what their career choice is. They generally say, I want to be X, and they are ruthless in terms of getting there. And I realized that's not me. I could be doing anything as long as I felt like that was an extremely impactful thing that helps millions.
Did you have that identity or that self-realization though back then, or is that like in hindsight? I'm just curious if you were self-aware of that at that point, because I'd have been freaking out. Like, what is this? Now I'm the bike lock guy. Personally, now I have a little bit more grounding, but I'm just thinking back and I'm curious about your experience.
I think it actually happened at that time because that was the
Oh, wow. Okay.
where I had to face it head on. And I was doing interviews with the BBC at 4 a.m. and I don't think I slept for about 40 hours straight.
So you were thrown off the cliff, man.
I was thrown off the cliff and I had to kind of face some of these things head on because it all came crashing very, very quickly. So more than anything, that experience led me to learn more about myself as an individual and as an entrepreneur than anything.
So a lot of entrepreneurs, as you're aware, are listening to this, and a lot of, senior level executives, and many I find that, like, let's say that, they may have been they may be a doctor, they may be a lawyer, they may be something that, something you went to school for a long time and you put yourself in this box many times. And whether you feel society's doing it, not doing it, you're doing it yourself, whatever. That's not my point in the question. But like, what would you say to others that have kind of, that haven't given themselves the room to explore or to even do something different? Because you could have even, like, before you didn't, okay, I know you didn't plan for Skunk Lock to necessarily go viral in that quick of time, right? It was just something you were trying to do for yourself to solve a problem and to help some others. But you let yourself out of your quote unquote box of, like, and not saying you were quitting everything else you're doing, but you did. You let yourself explore and put your brand as Dan onto something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you say to those out there that are still kind of exploring or a little bit, I don't want to use the word scared, but they're just kind of exploring that idea?
Sure. I would say the first thing is try to identify the motivation, what you're doing.
That's good.
People are motivated by different things. As it turns out, the majority of people are motivated by wanting to find a partner in life, let's say. That is a very strong biological driver. Other people are motivated by wanting absolute freedom. They don't want to, have their time restricted or how they can spend their time. So people are motivated by different things. Some people are motivated entirely monetarily. They'd be ecstatic. They can just eat the best meals, have the nicest car, have the nicest house. So there's a lot of variance there. So being really purposeful in terms of understanding what is actually motivating you, I think, is a guiding light there. For me, it's always almost entirely been the freedom portion. A lot of money, as long as I have the freedom to pursue my passions. And my biggest passion is, and favorite part of the day, is opening up those emails from Skunk Lock customers.
That's amazing. So to jump around a little here, with Skunk Lock, you were originally, trying to solve the problem for yourself, saving your own bike, helping some other people there. So that I get that part. Now with Side Pocket, what are you trying to solve there, or what were you trying to solve there?
Yeah, what I realized was there are 10 million bikes stolen every year, but that's still a relatively niche thing. Not everybody has a bicycle. One thing that impacts everyone's life is their financial wellness, their quality of, because that impacts your quality of life directly. If you can't afford food or shelter,
of course,
that's hypercritical. And what I had realized is the world has changed pretty substantially. Specifically, the big secret or the big truth that I discovered was financial education no longer comes from licensed financial professionals. It comes from predominantly friends and family. So if you include friends and family, people you trust, and digital media, that represents over 90%. But the largest and fastest growing segment of where financial education comes from is by far digital media, which is over 50% now. So we're talking YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. And another part of that is content creators are not really equipped to provide sufficient financial education. And this has actually led to a significant drop in financial literacy in the United States from 34% to about 17% just in the last 12 years. So there's a high correlation between those two things. And a big part of why that is because the incentives for content creators, and we can even call them influencers, are non-existent. Creators get less than 1% of the total revenue for providing this incredibly important financial knowledge, where brokerage houses like Robinhood and Fidelity and TD end up taking the majority. So the of that revenue, because they get revenue on every client marginally that's brought in for the lifetime value of that client. And the industry has been keeping that from these educators and creators purposefully since the beginning of time, pretty much, right? So my thing here is we have new people that are fundamental in helping us resolve some of these problems that we have in the United States surrounding wellness. So financial literacy, which has led to $7.1 trillion deficit in retirement funds. People are not saving enough. They're not investing enough, and they're investing in the wrong, they're gambling. Americans saw $9 trillion in losses during the down markets in 2020 and 2022 because there was a lot of speculation and a lot of shady stuff that was being done. And frankly, the models that are available to them didn't perform well. 2020 is the first performing year for the 60-40 portfolio in 100 years, which is shocking. That was supposed to be one of the safest types of portfolios to invest your money. And lastly, the biggest issue is there is a purposeful and egregious disconnect and fragmentation between where people learn about investing and personal finance and where they can take action and actually invest through brokerages, RIAs, etc. So right now, I would spend hundreds of hours trying to help friends and family, and I would get a lot of questions. How should I invest my money? How can I learn to invest? Are there better ways to invest than buy and hold and robo-advisors? And I would send them a bunch of YouTube videos. And then I would send them links to Fidelity and Schwab and Vanguard. And there was so much lost in translation in between there because that support layer does not exist. And what I realized is people don't have that support layer. They are never going to feel comfortable enough saving and investing in order to actually have a meaningful impact on their financial wellness and securing their financial future.
Like, what type of investor is this appropriate for? Just in general, is it only for accredited investors? Is this for the everyday investor? Like, who can participate?
Yeah, so the best kept secrets are kept for the 1%. So that's a part of the problem. The best strategies that are applying these sophisticated methods of investing are only available to accredited investors. So I didn't want to make anything for accredited investors. They're pretty taken care of already. They have access to hedge funds and other alternative types of investments. Who doesn't is the retail investor with less than, let's say, $5 million in liquid capital. But those are the people that need it most. So what we did at Side Pocket is we tackled two of the biggest existential problems that are contributing to this, let's say, financial wellness crisis in America. And the first one is we have to democratize these strategies that are currently available to only 1% of the U.S. population. And that's what we did. And we spent many years doing that. We've been working on that for over 5 years at this point. And we did that successfully. That's the foundation of what we built. Without that, you can't build anything on top of it. But then you have to address financial literacy, because if people, one, don't have trust and the minimum amount of financial literacy, then they won't feel comfortable actually investing. So the way financial literacy is we have partnered and are partnering with some of the most well-known and biggest social media influencers and content creators, or what some call finfluencers, in order to help us educate the 99% that we don't, and do it in a fun, engaging, and really easy to understand way. So imagine having index the index fund explained to you by a food influencer relative to, how fine dining works, or a baseball card collector you mentioned imagine having a baseball card collector influencer or YouTuber explain to you what the Sharpe ratio is relative to baseball cards. And it's fun, it's engaging, and you learn a lot. And you learn just enough to feel comfortable taking the next step and taking action. And it's all within the same platform, which we're calling the Content Integrated Investing Platform, or CIP.
Man, I love this idea, and I love your examples. Because I feel like the more you can bring high finance concepts to relatable things that happen daily. So it's not just a conversation where you have with your advisor historically once a quarter or once every 6 months, or maybe even annually, or for most people, never, right? So if you could bring that content into their lives in a meaningful way and connect it to things that make sense to them and that they can grasp and that are interesting and, more importantly, hold their attention. That's one of my favorite things about the content creator and influencer really economy, is that they're experts at getting attention and keeping that attention. And that's not something and building an authentic audience. And not everybody is, obviously, but the ones that are and do it really well, they have the opportunity to help a lot of people, especially when they align with companies like yours that are trying to make a difference in this way. So I think the concept's great. I think it's something super interesting. For my long-term listeners, they know I was in finance for almost 14 years. That was my career prior to media now for 8 years. So I spent a lot of time thinking about and talking about this subject. And I haven't really heard anybody else talk about the content portion of it the way that you have. That's super interesting to me. And I think it's got the opportunity to do a lot of good. That's what I see. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Adam. It's really great to hear. And I should mention, this is definitely something that no one's ever done before and no one can do except for SidePocket right now. We essentially have a unique ability to do this because, keep in mind, the usual model for how compensation of content creators and influencers works is, for example, a big brokerage like Robinhood, let's say, it's a popular one, will go to a content creator or influencer and say, hey, we'll give you $100,000 to talk about Robinhood for 30 seconds on your channel. And then we'll make this unique link where we'll pay you another $100 for every client you bring in. But that represents, a small fraction of what Robinhood actually makes on those clients.
Of course.
And currently we're the only company in the world that's able to pay these creators potentially unlimited amount of ongoing revenue.
Wow.
And that's extremely important to align interests, because as we grow and our client base grows, we're leaning on these creators to continuously also educate these clients in these fun and engaging ways. So that's incredibly important, that these are highly incentivized, ongoing relationships. And that's really what we're most excited about. We're leaning into the fact that creators are the new financial educator. It's not CFPs anymore. Although we have CFPs on board that are training the content creators.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Dan, I just have to say that it has been great having you on the show today. I know I'm going to hear so much more about SidePocket. It's just a great concept. The execution's great. For everybody that's watching this, by the way, and they want to connect with Dan and see all of these projects, a great way to do it is to go to Dan's website, which is Idzkowski, just like his last name, IDZKOWSKI.com. And that's going to redirect his LinkedIn, and then you'll be able to see all of his companies and also projects that he's working on. And speaking of everybody that's listening and or watching this, if this is your first time with the platform or engaging in an episode or listening to Mission Matters and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hey, this is your invitation. Hit the subscribe button. We got many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss anything. And if you're feeling extra friendly, then leave that review, because of course that helps the show and helps us get out to more people. So we do appreciate that. Dan, hey, I really want to thank you again for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, Adam.